All right. See, I'm gonna give y'all a second to get in here. I'm gonna play a song, give everybody a chance to tap back in with the class, man. Give everybody a chance to tap back in with the class. All right. Only you see just how it feels.
One west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. One west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. They ain't scaring me. Rip the soul out of Pharisee. Speaking heresy, it get you fucked up apparently. It's like they daring me. I said chill, they ain't hearing me. They ain't listening. Every bar nitroglycerin. Hit your heart, bring it back to start, make you live again. Get them dividends or we start getting ignorant. I be on that soldier shit. I told you shit phenomenal. Nah, but he a domino. So what you suckers trying to do? Rhyming comical, guess it's funny until I'm bombing you. Bring apocalypse to them pussy niggas that's popping shit. Team my all-stars, I coach them up like I'm Popovich. Fuck the politics and the lobbyists and apologists. They vagina, so we gon' check them like gynecologists. It's kinda obvious how the situation is ominous. The way I vomit this and regurgitate for the audience. They start applauding this cause the competition is fraudulent. From the era where niggas smoke you up like a parliament. The flow been stupid, shit has gotten retarded since. All the dominance of one west rising to prominent. Cause I be one west to the death till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. They want a nigga quiet, mute my maneuvers, but I ride like I got Groupons for Uber. Rhymes hard like they been viewed by Medusa. 9 milli Luger, 17 in the Ruger. Only need a few to sit up in your medulla. Obligata for the regatta, niggas wildin', they win every dollar. They riding by in black Impalas, let the semi holler. The showstopper, been this proper since the teeny bopper. But now I'm growing them off Patron, a premium of vodka. I put extensions on the Glock, modify the chopper. The swore heavy, war ready, and that's worth the mama. No marijuana, say I got the loudest silence on it. When I'm up on it, ain't no rapper do it like I do it. A lot of spitties and writers, but when they eat on, none of them could get to the fire. Ran with me, and I had a nigga spin like a tire. But down the D, and I'm still dope as a piper. Every bar burn hard like a spoon with a lighter. Fuel to ignite, I'm winning, coming through with the title because UP. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me. I be one west to the death till they bury me. I'm one west till they bury me.
So like it, the water, Ash, the water. I appreciate it. Having a rough time getting this class off the ground, y'all. Started the class on time. Did the announcements. The internet dropped. The computer went down. I had to start over, and I just did the announcements again with no sound. Let me run through it one more time. Shalom. You live with the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Priest and Captain Soccer War holding down the class live from Memphis, Tennessee. Every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we have classes here in Memphis from 6 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. All you brothers and sisters out there, if you got family, loved ones, people you care about in the Memphis, Tennessee, and surrounding areas, get them in contact with the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Since 1969, we have been teaching so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians the truth according to the Bible. What is the truth? The truth is that so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians descend from the greatest people that have ever walked the face of the earth. The Bible identifies us as the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. And in the year 2026, there's nothing more important than for God's chosen people to learn the truth of who we are, where we come from, and what our purpose is on this earth. So what I like to do with these classes is give brothers and sisters an opportunity to go into this book called the Bible, to gain the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that the Most High has put inside of this book, so that we can come back to being the people that He called us to be and reclaim our righteous place on the earth as kings, priests, princesses, and daughters of Zion. With that being said, if there's any questions in the room, type them in, you raise your hand. If there's any questions online, type them in. If there are no questions, then we'll go ahead and get into the topic. What you see on the screen is in the days of Noah. All right, in the days of Noah. So I'm gonna give you a second. If anybody has any questions, type them in. If there are not any questions, then we'll get into the topic of tonight's class. If you all could like and share the class, give other brothers and sisters an opportunity to come on and check us out, see what it is that we teaching and breaking down here in the ISUPK. It just may be something that's to their benefit. So while I'm going ahead and getting the class ready, if y'all could share, like the class, share it, and let other people know we live, it'll be greatly appreciated. All right. So let's get that. Let me first go and delete this. Going to go to the bin. Boom. Okay, we'll go ahead and pull this up. Boom. And then we'll go ahead and come back and share this. Let me say Yahweh Shalom, Thabah Shem Yahweh, shout out all the sisters tuning in. Yahweh Shem Yahweh, shout Barakatham to all the brothers. Those are the greetings that we have here in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. So I'll give y'all a little minute. Nobody came through with any questions. So we'll go ahead and get into the topic of tonight's class. All right. So the other day I was just sitting and thinking, just looking at different things going on in society, going on in the world. And it got me to thinking about, things that we read about concerning events that have happened in the past in the Bible, and how the Bible so accurately prophesies a lot of the things that we are experiencing and going through in the society that we're living in today. And there are a lot of things, in the Bible that are cyclical. You go in the Bible and you read it and you get to understand, what it is that the Most High laid out for the children of Israel and the ways that He's dealt with us on this earth in previous generations. It's easy to see that a lot of these events that have unfolded throughout history are somewhat cyclical. You understand? And they say that people who don't know the past are bound to repeat it. And a lot of what we are experiencing, a lot of what we are living through in this current generation is a result of us experiencing something that has happened in the earth before. And it's very difficult. Sometimes it's a difficult concept to grasp of history repeating itself. But the Bible, Christ warned that in the last days, it would be just as it was in the days of Noah. Right? So that's the first scripture we're going to go to, is when Christ talked about how things in the end times, it was going to be just like it was in the days of Noah. Meaning what? That's a cycle repeating itself. The earth being in the condition that it was in the days of Noah, being the same way today, is prophesied in the Bible. And so as I was thinking about this concept, I typed out what was on my mind and I posted it on social media. And so I'm gonna take y'all to the social media post that I made. I'm gonna read it, and then we'll go ahead and get into the scriptures from there. All right. So if you don't follow me on other social media platforms, if you go on Facebook, Angry Black Man Media, or ISUPK, or Home of the Truth Memphis. If you're on YouTube, of course, Angry Black Man Media on YouTube, ISUPK Memphis. I'm also on TikTok at see hear speak _truth, or you could just type in Chief Sock G, Angry Black Man Media, on TikTok as well, right? And there's another app that I've been gaining some traction on called Threads. It's more of a typing style app, but I share some things on there as well. But this what I'm pulling up is from what I shared on Facebook the other day. All right, and so I'm gonna try to position the screen so it can be read and so it can be seen and read clearly. See if I can zoom in. Hold on now. Come on. All right, let me see if I can position. Okay, I got it positioned. I need this to disappear. Can I move that? Yeah, there we go. Okay, I can't shift over. Let's see. Let me go ahead and try to read this for y'all. All right, make sure it's clear on the screen for y'all to see. Okay, it's not that clear on the screen. Let me see. Make me smaller, make that bigger. No, that don't change it. Give me a second. No, that don't change it neither. Okay. I'm just gonna take me off the screen. I'm gonna make me very small on the screen. Okay. So this is what it reads. It says, black and brown people are in the same condition we were in during the days Christ walked the earth. An elite, wealthy, religious, and political class that has totally sold out, integrated, and sided with the oppressor. Division and infighting among the common folk about who's authentic and able to identify as one of us. Various groups and movements inspired to revolt, but with no real solution as direction or enough backing to make a difference. Poverty caused by the cruelty, gluttony, and lack of empathy by our oppressors. Fears of the return of forced captivity and enslavement by the decree of our oppressors. All while the Spirit of the Most High has raised up prophets and priests to warn his people of the impending day of evil, to compel them to abandon the allegiance to their slave masters, to turn away from their materialistic ambitions, to show them that the only way to survive what is to come is to seek the Most High's righteousness and put obedience to his laws above all else. Unfortunately, as with every other time in history, his people refuse to take heed to the prophets. Lord, allow this is the last time we must endure the evil that is set before us. Lord willing, the Most High will allow all those who are deserving of deliverance and to escape the jump. Lord willing, this time we will live. Lord willing, this time we live to finally see the fall of the devil that has caused us so much pain and suffering. Lord willing, we get to witness the return of our King and the beginning of the world we fought so hard to inherit. I can only pray that this is the Most High can tell us that he is pleased with our work. Thoughts of a priest, right? And so I can prove all of that in the Bible, and that is what I endeavor to do with this class tonight. The goal of this class tonight is to go into the Bible and show you that what it is that we are living through and experiencing now has been lived through and experienced on the earth before. And the warnings that are in the Bible, the prophecies of the future that are in the Bible, is the Most High attempting to allow us to learn from the mistakes of the past so that we don't repeat them. But because of the lies of religion and the propaganda, that is put against us, not only against the Bible, but against our history and against the things that caused us to go into slavery. Like everything has been hidden from us. All the lies that we have been told has been a concerted effort by our oppressors to keep us from knowing the truth, to keep us from seeing what it is that God warned us about and the things that we've done in the past and mistakes that we've made that landed us in the positions that we found ourselves in the past. Like in this time that we're in now, there's no excuses. There's no reason for anybody who the Lord is trying to wake up, that the Lord wants to hear the truth, that the Lord wants to be delivered from the evil of this society. There's no excuses now. We have the internet, we have social media, we have all of these different outlets and platforms where the truth can be expounded, where brothers and sisters can ask questions. I teach these classes 3 nights out of the week. There's other classes going on in the ISUPK 7 days a week. We on all these different platforms. There's no excuse for anybody who's trying to learn the truth to not learn the truth, which to me signals that we are in the time that Christ warned about. We are in the days of Noah. You understand? And it's very similar to the days that Christ walked the earth. So we're going to go ahead and go into the Bible and get a breakdown of what it means to be living in the days of Noah. What are some of the things that we can see are, happening in today's society, that happened in the society that Noah was living in, that happened in the society that Christ was living in, and just really get some understanding of the magnitude of the opportunity the Lord has afforded us to be able to learn the truth, understand the truth, and change our lives in this day and age. Everybody understands? All right, so let me go ahead and get let's get Matthew chapter 24, verse 38. You understand? Matthew chapter 24, verse 38. All right. All right, this is Matthew chapter 24. I'm going to start at verse 37. All right. And it reads, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So the days, as it was in the days of Noah, it's going to be the same way when the Son of Man returns to the earth, right? It says, verse 38, for as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. Meaning what? Everybody was going on with their lives. They were just living their lives, eating, drinking, having a good time. They were marrying, which is meaning they having sex. They were giving in marriage, meaning parents was, marrying their children off. And everybody, people that exist that way only when they're not afraid, when there's no threat of danger. You understand? In a time where everyone is recognizing the danger, people aren't getting married. People aren't having celebrations and parties. People aren't eating and drinking. Eating and drinking is not, having a sandwich and sipping some tea at home. Eating and drinking is like being at a feast, having a party. If we are concerned about some horrible evil that is about to befall us, we're not going to party. We're not going to go and have a good time and have fun. We're going to be concerned, worried. We're going to be preparing ourselves for the horrible thing that's about to happen. Christ said they didn't do that in the days of Noah. The days before the flood, they wasn't worried about what was going on. Someone was worried, which was Noah. Noah was worried about what was happening. That's why Noah built the ark. But the rest of the people that were not, didn't have the knowledge that Noah had, didn't have the understanding that Noah had, they was living their lives like regular. Christ said it's going to be like that in the days when he returns. And we in a time now where everybody's eating and drinking. They're marrying and giving in marriage. The conversations that I see online, the banter and the focus of everybody right now is not how are we going to be delivered? How are we going to get salvation? How are we preparing ourselves for Christ to come and establish the kingdom of heaven on earth? Right now, it's arguments online about men and women in relationships. The big thing, the big news today is, Sauce Walker and his baby mama that he sent to have sex with Drake, and Drake, tricked off and bought a Maybach Benz, and the baby mama came out and said, yeah, Sauce Walker is just jealous that I upgraded and got with Drake. And then Sauce Walker posts screenshots of him telling the woman, go have sex with Drake and give me the money he give you, and her sending him the money. That's the focus. The focus ain't on, the salvation and the truth and the white man trying to bring slavery back. We literally right now in America in 2026 on, June 2nd, you can look at the landscape of the political ongoings in America and see that white people are actively trying to bring back slavery. Right now, there's a detention center where people are being held illegally in New Jersey, and there are people protesting at that detention center where people are being held illegally in New Jersey, and the police is coming out and beating people over the head. They spraying tear gas and they locking people up and they beating them across the head. But the finals start tomorrow, and I'm excited. I can't wait to watch the Knicks beat the San Antonio Spurs in the finals tomorrow. It is a horribly evil time for anybody who is focused and attentive to the warnings that the Lord has given us. But Christ said that just as it was in the days of Noah, it's going to be in the days when the Son of Man returns, or when Christ comes to establish the kingdom. Let me keep reading. This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 39. And knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. You understand? The coming of the Son of Man is going to be in the same way. There's not going to be no great event to warn you. There's not going to be no, period of anticipation and heads up. Christ is going to return the same way that the flood came with Noah. Everybody was doing their thing. Then all of a sudden, a loud crack and a thunder and rain came pouring out of the sky. And at that time, it was too late to do anything because the ark had already closed. Well, right now, the men in the ISUPK are on the streets teaching. We're on the internet teaching. We're trying to warn our people. We're having debates and battles about, all these different concepts that are in the Bible. Is Jesus God? Is there a Trinity? You understand? Is salvation for everybody? And you know what's happening in the midst of us doing all this teaching, in the midst of us bringing out this knowledge of the Most High? There are people who are ignoring it. There are people who are denying it. There are people who are saying that we are wrong. And the Bible says that those people are going to get caught up in the destruction the same way that people got swept up in the flood. Everybody understands. Now, my computer looks like it's lagging. I don't know what's going on. Let me know. Give me a 1 if y'all can hear me. Okay, it looks like it's cleaned up now. I don't know what's going on with this computer. I gotta get this computer checked out. Right. All right. So that's what Christ said. Let's go and look at what it was like in the days of Christ. Now, okay, last week's classes. I taught last week's class. We did 2 classes. One was about the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. And the second class, I forget what it was about, but I know I referenced, the hardening of Pharaoh's heart that I taught on Tuesday, right? We see in those classes that there was racism in Egypt. You understand? When the children of Israel were in Egypt, the Egyptians were supremacists. They saw themselves as being above and better than other races of people. We saw in the book of Exodus that the Egyptians had segregation. They segregated themselves from other nations. They wouldn't eat meals and wouldn't have any dealings with the Hebrews. And that's very similar to what we see taking place with. We have suffered from white supremacy. We have suffered from the segregation of our oppressors. And rather than learning the lessons that God showed us in Exodus and following the example that Joseph gave to his brothers and sisters because of Christianity and these different religions, we have not done what the children of Israel did to get free in Egypt. Even though our captivity in America mirrors the captivity of the Israelites in Egypt, even though our suffering and crying out to God because of the hardness of the oppression that we've experienced here in America is very similar to what the Israelites experienced in Egypt, we have not found ourselves following the blueprint that the Lord provided for us to get out of captivity. And it's largely due to there being a large faction in our community. Let's keep going with the analogy, with the similarities between the Egyptian captivity and the Israelite captivity. How did the Egyptians keep the Israelites busy, keep them oppressed? They appointed taskmasters over them. They took of the Hebrews and raised some of them up, gave them titles and status and money, and said, y'all responsible with keeping these people in line. Y'all responsible with keeping these people working. Well, isn't that what America has done with the leadership in the Black and Hispanic community? Isn't that what they've done with all of the politicians, with all of the educated people? Desegregation was a ploy to rob the Black and Hispanic community of all of the noble, honorable, educated, and affluent leaders of our society. America knew what it was doing. When they passed the Civil Rights Bill and they passed the Voting Rights Act. Voting Rights Act. They were going to be able to spend off these black people, get them to assimilate and integrate into white culture, to integrate and assimilate into white society. And that's exactly what happened in the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian community. Many of us, if you are a child that was born in the late 70s or the 80s, you remember they had programs like Gifted and Talented, where the white man identified children among blacks and Hispanics that were smart, that were, showing signs of intelligence, that were showing signs of being ahead of schedule with their learning and with their capacity to be able to understand information and process it quickly. And they separated us from the rest of our classmates. I was one of those gifted and talented kids. They took me and separated me from the rest of the black children. They put me in classes where I was with Asians and with Russians and with white people and East Indian children, and they accelerated us, taught us different lessons than what they were teaching the rest of the class. I remember vividly being in class and being given assignments and paperwork, and I would finish the assignment, finish the math sheet, and ask for another one. And they took me and put me in gifted and talented classes. And I know many children who, that I grew up with, black kids that were smart and intelligent, that got put in those classes and put in those programs. And we were taught and raised by the school system that we were better than the other children, that we were the choice Negroes. We were the ones that were preferred and the ones that, were so smart and speak so well. And they tried to fast track us to, go to certain colleges and universities and to speak a certain way and to talk a certain way. They tried to fast track us to put on a path of success in the white man's world, in the society where we would benefit our oppressor. Those gifted and talented programs and classes were never designed for black and brown children to go and be great and to come and contribute to black and brown society. Many of us, those gifted and talented programs didn't exist in private schools. They didn't exist in schools where it was expected of you to be educated on a certain level. You understand what I'm saying? Those gifted and talented programs was in those public schools. They were in those schools in those neighborhoods where there were mixtures of different kinds of children. Or if you grew up in an all black city, those gifted and talented classes were designed, that designation was designed to separate you and highlight you from the other kids. And that's what it was done. Those people, those children who were the gifted and talented, they were the ones that were designed to grow up and become the taskmasters, to design to grow up and have a wonderful life. And then look at the people in the ghetto, look at the people who were poor, look at the children who didn't learn as quickly, who didn't have the good education, and say, look at you, man, you just want to be like that. Why can't you pick yourself up by the bootstraps? Why can't you be better? I remember I went to public school with kids whose parents were on drugs. I went to school with kids whose mamas and daddies, was struggling with crack cocaine addiction. And I look at some of those kids now, man, and they working at Walmart. They working at Home Depot. You know what I'm saying? They 20 years, he working at Best Buy, working at Foot Locker. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but he wasn't afforded the same opportunities as the kid that was in the gifted and talented classes that was, taking college courses in high school and being fast tracked, in an AP program and getting college courses and college credits when you was in high school. They made it easier for the not easier, but they made the path to success more clear for those smart and affluent, gifted and talented children, to try and show them and condition them to life in the melting pot that America is. Most black people don't know what never experienced the melting pot of America, not in the corporate world and not in their communities. Why? Because the taskmasters put over them to keep them down, keep them in a condition where they wouldn't even, know a life that was better or experience a life that was better. So they would be content just being slaves. They would be content just being on, Section 8, being on these government programs, being content just, as long as they can get a little weed and get high and have sex with whores, they okay. Their life is good to go. They're not looking for a better life. They're not looking for, they don't have higher aspirations. And that's the same thing that was done in Egypt. The same way they kept the people pacified in Egypt, it was done here in America. You understand? Which goes to show you what? oppression has a cycle. Oppression has a playbook and a game plan. You understand? Bible doesn't give you the game plan and the playbook of oppression, but the Bible does give you the game plan and the playbook of getting free from oppression, of rising out of oppression. You understand? And so we know that in the days of Noah, they were eating and drinking, having a good time. Christ said it's going to be like that in the days of the Son of Man. We know that in Egypt there was slavery and segregation and a supremacist, a racially supremacist oppressor. That's the same thing in America. You understand? There's a racially supremacist oppressor. There's segregation. You understand? And there's all types of plans to keep the people who are being oppressed from ever rising up. Well, what was the earth like in the days of Christ? What were the conditions that existed during the days when Christ walked the earth that made it so that Christ's death was possible, that made it so that everybody didn't just follow him and obey him and transform the world? We're going to go into the Bible and give you some of the things that some of the examples in the scriptures that the time of Christ walking the earth is just like the time that we're living in today. Everybody understands. First, let's talk about oppression, right? We living in a time where the economy is bad. They are erasing all of the government programs. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the jobs are laying off or they cutting back the wages. A lot of employment opportunities that existed before are not existing now. You know what I'm saying? And there's public conversations being had about how bad the economy is, about how tight things are about to get now. If you just go back to the 80s, what we are about to experience in America today is what our parents and grandparents experienced during what they call the Reaganomics era, during the Reagan administration. Reagan became president in 1984, I want to say. 1984, 80. I think Reagan was president in 80 and 84. Well, when Reagan became president, it was the Republicans getting back in office. They tried to erase the progress that the Voting Rights Act made. They tried to erase the progress that Black people were having, getting good jobs and working in factories and being assimilated into white society and white culture. And during the days of the Reagan administration, they started cutting off Black people. You understand? And it's what that time period, they experienced what they call Reaganomics in history. Well, Reaganomics coincided with a great period of inflation with the money. A lot of jobs was rolling back. Factories were shutting down. They started to make deals and ship jobs overseas to China and ship jobs to Mexico and Canada. A lot of the things that took away the Black industrial factories in the Black community happened during the Reagan administration. And if you talk to Black people who lived through it, they'll tell you, man, money was tight back then. A lot of us, I was born in the 80s, right? And I grew up, and I know many people grew up this way. I grew up in a house where there was my grandparents, there were my 4 uncles, my mother, my great-grandmother, and myself. You understand? I think I just named 12 people in the house. Grandparents, 2 of them, my 4 uncles, that's 6. My mom, that's 7. My grandmother, that's 8. And me, that's 9. 9 people and this was an apartment, right? I'm thinking of some of the other families that I knew that lived in this apartment building. And it was everybody, so long story, let me just stay with my family. It was 9 of us in a 4-bedroom apartment. It was a huge ass apartment, though. I don't even know if my situation even counts. But what I'm saying is, it wasn't that strange for all of us to live in this apartment. It was like a normal thing. Now, we live in a time today where, as time has gone on, people have been able to spread out and move around, and everybody have their own house and have their own apartment and have their own spot they living in. And we've all gotten accustomed to and comfortable with having our own space. Well, guess what? The reason why all them people lived in that apartment I grew up in is because they did not have money to go somewhere else and live somewhere else. They didn't have no money to, get their own place. As I'm thinking about it, when we did leave that apartment where everybody lived together there with my grandparents, I think everybody moved out. Only people that moved out moved in with they moved in with women. 2 of my uncles went and got got married or got with some chicks they was with. One of my uncles moved to Cali. He was hustling, and another uncle moved in with my aunt. Me and my mom went and moved in with my aunt. She was on Section 8. And we lived there, and it was, made it work until hell. Me and my mother didn't even move out. We ended up moving into an auntie's house. We moved into a house in DC with an aunt that was there. We never had our own place. It was never a point in my family, in my life, that I've known that, there was 5 or 6 people paying their own separate rent and having their own separate mortgage. It just wasn't something that I ever experienced. And I'm thinking of families of people that I knew with big families like I had. They still just all stayed together. You understand? Now, we had a time in this as I grew up, the expectation as a man was you grow up, you get your own place, you have your own spot, your parents have their place, and you buy a house and you do this and that. But with all of the things that have happened in society, with all the economic oppression we've experienced, it's too expensive now. If you are from a family of 5, it's you and 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and everybody has their own families. Unless everybody in that house is working and contributing, it's damn near not enough. You're not making enough money for just you and your family to have your own place. You understand? We in a time now where it's 5 of y'all in a family, and 2 of y'all single, 3 of y'all married. We're gonna have to get back to, hey man, you and your family and your kids come and live with us, and we'll just all 4 of us, meaning the 2 grown men and the 2 grown women, we'll put our money together and pay for this 4-bedroom house. And hell, if you and your woman got 3 kids, your 3 kids got to share a room. Me and my woman with our 2 kids, will have a room, and we'll each have our own room. So it's 2 families living in a 4-bedroom house. It's 3 kids in a room, and man, and you know what I'm saying? Like, we in a time where the economic oppression is getting to where families gonna have to come back together. We're gonna have to get back to surviving and living comfortably, being uncomfortable, because what's happening economically is another cycle of what took place 30, 40 years ago with Reagan. Now, I'm using the example of the economic, downturn that society is taking to show you that a lot of the things that we experience in today, it's a cycle of things that happened just 40 years ago. If you go 40 years ago from 1980, what was going on? 40 years from 1980, let's just say 1986. It's 2026. 1986 was Reaganomics. You go 40 years before that, it was the end of World War II. Which in America, that meant an economic boom because of the Industrial Revolution, but that was 10 years removed from the Great Depression. The Great Depression was in the 20s and the 30s. So people was suffering then. Like, you could track this thing and go back and understand the cycles that the different generations of people that have been on the earth have lived in. But let's go back 2,000 years from today. We're going to go back 2,000 years to the days of Christ, to what was going on in their society, being Israelites in Israel under Roman oppression, under Roman subjection. And we're going to look at the climate of the society of Christ's time and relate it to this climate of the society that we're living in today. Everybody understands? So let's go ahead and get it. Let me drop this. Let's get let me see. Let's get Matthew chapter 9. Let's get Matthew chapter 9. Nah, let's not get Matthew chapter 9. Hold up. Let me get trying to find a scripture that shows the poverty that the people were living in during that time. You understand? Um Okay, hold on. Hold on. No, not John. Hold on. Let me see something. All right, let me get let's get Matthew. Let's get Mark chapter 2. Mark chapter 2, verse 17. Get Mark chapters 2, verse 17. All right. All right. And a lot of this is going to be us reading and understanding the words of Christ and really getting the context of how he used his words to describe the evils of his time. We all know that Christ was on the earth. Christ's biggest detractors, or the biggest, you know, non-believers that he had, were the religious leaders of his time, the Pharisees and Sadducees. It's necessary to understand that the reason the Pharisees and Sadducees did not understand Christ, did not take heed to what he was teaching, is because literally in many instances they were not Israelites. If you go and read the history of what was going on in Israel before Christ was born, the after the Maccabean revolution that we read about in the book of First Maccabees and Second Maccabees and the Apocrypha, there rose up rulers over the Israelites known as the Seleucids. Let me see something. Let's see if I could get this right. The Seleucids. Who were the Seleucids? Right? Who were the Seleucids? Let's see something. Nah, this might not be right. Hold on, this might not be right. But let's see. Who were the Seleucids? No, it's not the Seleucids. Hold up. The Hasmonean. Who were the Hasmoneans? Who were the Hasmoneans? Let's get this. Who were the Hasmoneans? Okay, the Hasmoneans were the ruling dynasty of an independent Jewish kingdom in Judea during the Hellenistic and early Roman periods, roughly 141 to 37 BCE. Descended from the Maccabees, they led a successful revolt against the Seleucid Empire and restored Jewish sovereignty. You understand? So, in history, the period that we read about in First Maccabees and Second Maccabees is known as the Judean revolt against the Seleucid Empire. The Seleucids are who were in control during the days of First and Second Maccabees that the Israelites fought against and reclaimed Jerusalem from. They fought against the Seleucids and they won. The name of Judas Maccabeus and Titus and his sons and them who ended up taking back Jerusalem, they were known in history as the Hasmoneans. The Hasmoneans were a dynasty that reigned, I just read it, from roughly 141 to 37 BCE. Now, 37 BCE would have been close to 4 years before Christ was born, right? Which means what? The end of the Seleucid rule was a little bit before Christ was born. Now, what happened after the Seleucids were defeated? Let me see if I can read it here. It says, internal strife in the end. The dynasty's later years were marred by intense infighting and civil war. This instability allowed the Roman Republic, led by Pompey, to conquer Judea in 63 BCE. The dynasty officially ended in 37 when the Romans executed Antigonus, the last Hasmonean ruler, and installed Herod the Great on the throne. Now, let's see who was Herod the Great. Who was Herod the Great descended from? And this is important. This backdrop of Christ's time on the earth is necessary for you to really understand the battles in the New Testament between Christ and the Pharisees and Sadducees. All right. It says Herod the Great was not ethnically a Judean Jew. He was descended from Idumean and Nabatean Arab lineage. Who were the Idumeans in history? The Idumeans are Edomites. So Herod the Great, who was put in power over Israel a couple years before Christ was born, was not an Israelite. Which means what? A lot of the men that were in his court and that served him, they were also not Israelites. Everybody understands? Right before Christ was born, you have a leadership class in Israel that is not Israelites. When Herod ordered the death of all the firstborns after the wise men came because of the star in the sky told them of the birth of Christ, the reason why Herod was scared of the coming of the Messiah is because Herod knew that he was not an Israelite. So if there's a Messiah that comes, he's going to kill me and take over my rulership. That's why Herod orders the death of Christ in the New Testament, because he's not an Israelite. Everybody understands. And if Herod was not an Israelite, you can easily reason that a lot of the leadership would have also not been Israelites. They would have been of similar descent and put in positions of power the same way that Herod was put in a position of power. Let's read on further. It says, his father was Antipater the Idumean, a powerful high-ranking official. The Idumeans were historically linked to the Edomites, traditionally viewed as descendants of Jacob's brother Esau around 125 BCE. The Hasmonean ruler John Hyrcanus conquered Idumea and forcibly converted its population to Judaism. Because of this, Herod's paternal line practiced Judaism, but many Jews still considered themselves half Jews. So here we have 100 years before Christ was born, Edomites was conquered and forced to serve the God of Israel, which made them identify as Jews, even though bloodline, ethnically, they were not. Everybody understands. Let's keep reading. It says strategic Hasmonean marriages. Though Herod was not descended from the Hasmoneans by blood, he recognized that he lacked royal Jewish legitimacy. To bridge this gap and solidify his claim to the throne, he famously married the Hasmonean princess Mariamne, the granddaughter of Hasmonean high priest Hyrcanus II. Consequently, while Herod himself was not a Hasmonean descendant, his children from this marriage carried the bloodline of both families. Everybody understands? So let's see. So that's that. It's important to know that the leadership class during the days of Christ walking the earth were not Israelites. So a lot of Christ's battles with the Pharisees and Sadducees, a lot of Christ, you are your father, the devil. You must know that a lot of these people were not Israelites. They were devils. And Christ is saying, my sheep will hear my voice. Christ is saying, y'all can't hear me because y'all not even my people. Y'all not even of our bloodline. Which today in the Black Hispanic struggle against white oppression, we find that there is a ruling class above us that cannot relate to our struggle, that cannot relate to our anger and our frustration about white people and about our oppressor. There is a concentrated group of elite, educated, successful, rich Black and Hispanic people that could never side with us against our oppressor because they are of the bloodline of the oppressors. Go and do some history research about the foundation of the NAACP. Go look at the faces of the founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and you'll see that they are devils. They're all white. How could an organization created for the advancement of colored people be ran by white people? Go look at some of the great civil rights leaders that we had in the history of this country. You'll find a lot of them are descended from white people. W.E.B. Du Bois was not a Black man who descended from slaves. Booker T. Washington, his daddy was not a Black man that descended from slaves. Yet we are told that these were the men speaking about the oppression of Black people. Frederick Douglass. There's no record of who his father was to say that he was a black man. Frederick Douglass said he thought his daddy was a slave master. Look at some of the civil rights leaders, the Philip A. Randolph and the Bayard Rustin. Go look at the founders of some of these, they call them the Divine Nine organizations. Go look at the founders of the Black Greek fraternal organizations in America. Go look at the pictures of them, and you'll see that they look like they white. Why? Because a lot of them were white. One of the great civil rights leaders in New York City, there's a street called Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. Adam Clayton Powell is hailed as a great civil rights orator, meaning he spoke well about the plight of black people and encouraged black people to stand up. Adam Clayton Powell's daddy was a devil, a white man who was a Baptist preacher in Harlem, New York, but he was not our people. I'll tell you who else wasn't our people. What's this nigga's name? What is the nigga? Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad of the Nation of Islam that taught that the white man was the devil. Elijah Muhammad's daddy was white. Fard Muhammad, who Elijah Muhammad in the Nation of Islam teaches was God in the flesh. No, did they teach that Fard Muhammad was God or that he was Muhammad? I think they teach that Fard Muhammad was God. It was Allah. Fard Muhammad was a white man. Fard Muhammad was a white man. Elijah Muhammad was a white man. You know who else's daddy is white? Louis Farrakhan's daddy is a white man. Louis Farrakhan is not our people. Now, this is who has been set before black people as our leaders, as our rulers, as the ones we should follow. All of the, Divine Nine fraternity oath takers, a lot of their daddies are white. But yet these are who portrayed as the leaders of black people, just like it was in the days of Christ. And as Christ goes out to teach and speak, when they come and question Christ about his motives and question Christ about who he's aligning himself with, Christ establishes that I'm not here for y'all niggas. I don't have no dealings with you rich elites, with you high society folk that's, puffing your chest out and dressing all wonderful and nice. You understand? Let me show you what the Bible says about the climate that Christ was living in when he was walking on the earth. Let's get Mark chapter 2, verse 15. And again, just go look it up. I'm not making this up. All of the founders of the NAACP, the Divine Nine Greek fraternity organizations, many of those founders were white people. Their fathers were white. They may have had black mothers. They may have had, fair colored skin, but a lot of them was mulattoes. A lot of them was mixed with devil blood, which is why those organizations have never done anything to benefit black people. Those organizations have never done anything to teach black people the truth, to bring us closer to the Most High. And anybody that takes an oath to an organization to worship another God or to brand themselves with the identity of a God or the letters of another language onto them, they have taken an oath to worship that God. So they have given their lives in the service of this thing. They cannot serve black people and serve the Greek organization at the same time, which is why Christ, when he came, he didn't deal with those types who was into all of that. He came for the people that was in the gutter, man, the people that was poor, the people that was being ignored and discarded, because that is where the children of God are. And it was that way in the days of Christ, and it's the same way today. Everybody understands? So here we go, Mark chapter 2, verse 15. It says, and it came to pass that as Jesus sat at meat in his house, many publicans and sinners sat also together with Jesus and his disciples. For there were many that followed him. And when the scribes and Pharisees saw him eat with publicans and sinners, they said unto his disciples, how is it that he eateth and drinketh with publicans and sinners? What does the Bible mean when it calls these people publicans? Let me go ahead and get it in the Bible. The Bible, the publicans is a catchphrase that means a certain class of individual. I know part of it was like they work for the government, but let me make sure I'm clear on what the word publicans means in this context. Let's get publicans. Room 15. Okay, so publicans were tax collectors, right? A tax collector today would be like, how do I describe a tax collector today? Don't think police, right? Think you can't pay your bills online. This is okay. This is perfect to understand publicans. Publicans are like bill collectors if they had to knock on your door. imagine how hated someone would be if they lived in your neighborhood and their job, their 9 to 5, in order to feed their family, in order to, take care of themselves and pay their bills. Imagine somebody's job was to come knock on your door and say, your cell phone is a day past due. Your cell phone 2 days past due. Hey, man, it's hard to explain because we have technology. So it's difficult to explain this person, to describe this person. But imagine the phone. Everybody, if you got debt in your life, you get a call from somebody saying this is an attempt to collect the debt. Some of us owe a lot of people. So guess what? You get 5 of those calls a day. Well, imagine if instead of getting 5 calls a day about some bills you owe, there was somebody knocking on your door. They knocked on your door about the bill you owe. That's a publican. A publican is a cat that goes and collects the money that you owe people. So imagine a neighborhood, where everybody has to pay for plumbing. Just imagine you had a toilet, you flush the toilet, and the toilet got to go, the trash and the toilet go somewhere. Well, there's a company that comes and cleans the thing that you use the bathroom in. And there's somebody that's going to come knock on your door and say, hey, man, I'm with the plumbing company. You got to pay your bill today. And you like, man, look, man, I'll have it in a couple of days. Guess what? They show up the next day. Hey, man, you got to pay this plumbing bill. You said tomorrow. You going to have it tomorrow? And then he come the third day. Hey, man, what's up with the money? You got the money for the plumbing? And he like, man, look, bro, they ain't paid me at the job. My check was short. You got to wait till next week. The publican is going to keep knocking on your door. He's going to keep coming for that money that you owe for the bill you got to pay. And eventually you're going to hate this cat. Because every month at a certain time, he going to come knocking down your door for you to pay this bill. And he's just doing his job. He just worked for the company. He coming to collect his money. But you're going to hate this cat. And in regular life, nobody's going to want to be around a nigga whose job it is to come collect the bill. So on the weekend, when everybody going out and they drinking, they having a good time, nobody wants to be around the publican. Also, nobody wants to be around the sinner because, then the sinners at this time are people who are too poor to be forgiven for their sins. The sinners and the publicans are people that are too poor to pay for a turtle dove to be sacrificed. They're too poor to pay for a lamb to be slaughtered. They're too poor to pay for their sins to be forgiven, which is why they are looked at as sinners. You understand? Christ walked the earth in a time where if you sinned a sin worthy of death, you got put to death. If you sinned a sin that was not worthy of death, the way that you would get clean is to sacrifice, to pay the priest to sacrifice for your sin to be forgiven. Sinners at the time that Christ walked the earth were people who were too poor to pay for their sin to be forgiven. They're too poor to pay for their sin to be erased, for the slate to be cleaned for them. So they just known as sinners. And publicans, of course, the only reason why you would take the job as a publican is because you were too poor to do anything else. You ain't got no choice but to work for this company who gonna send you around the neighborhood knocking on everybody's door to collect the money that's due, and everybody gonna hate you. So the Pharisees and Sadducees collectively looked down on publicans and sinners because they were poor and broke, and nobody wants to be around these poor, broke people. Everybody understands. So that's why, as they're seeing Christ sitting down with publicans and sinners, they like, why is this nigga eating with these people? Why is the cat that's teaching about God and teaching about the Bible, he should be rubbing elbows with us. He should be up here with the lawyers and the doctors. He's so wise and got so much knowledge. Why is he down there with the poor in the dirt, in the hood, in the gutter? They want to know, why is Christ rolling with these people that everybody looks down on? Mark chapter 2, verse 16. And when the scribes and Pharisees saw him eat with publicans and sinners, they said unto his disciples, how is it that he eateth and drinketh with publicans and sinners? When Yahushua heard this, he said unto them, they that are whole have need of the physician. They that are whole have no need of the physician, but they that are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. Christ said, you all that are whole, you don't need a physician. Why were these people whole? Because when they sinned, they could just go pay for it to get wiped out. When they sinned, they could just go pay for it to go away. They didn't have to carry the sting of being a sinner. They didn't have to walk around with the badge of being a sinner, because they could just pay the fine and get it wiped out. Christ said, I didn't come for y'all. Y'all whole. You don't have a need for a physician. You're rich. You could buy your way out of trouble. You could buy your way out of hunger. You could buy your way out of poverty. You could pay for your sickness to be healed. You don't have need of a physician. You understand? I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. Christ said, I came to call the sinners to repentance. Who are the sinners? The people who are at the bottom, the people who are too poor to sacrifice for the wrong that they've done. Too poor for anybody to care to teach them to repent, to change your life. Because they are sinners, they are automatically cast off and just looked at like, you can't do nothing with them folks. They'll never get right. They're always going to sin. It's the same way today. In America, Black people, Hispanic people in poverty are looked at like we're all criminals. Looked at like we can't get right. But you'll never be able to stop Black on Black violence. That's just what they do. No, devil, we're poor and starving. There's crime in the white community. Where? Amongst the poor. There's crime in the Asian community. Where you find the most crime in the Asian community? Among the poor. Where do you find the most crime? Among the, the European community with the poor. Where do you find crime among the Arabs in the Arab community? Among the poor. The poor are the ones that need help. The poor are the ones that need to be lifted up. Christ said, I didn't come for you rich. I didn't come for you folks that got enough money to pay for all your problems. I came for the people that's broke. Why is that important? We live in a time now where people are in poverty. People are struggling. They just wiped out healthcare for, 50% of the country. There's a lot of Black people. I grew up, I didn't even know what healthcare was. I don't know what healthcare is. There's a reason why, they put castor oil on a spoon and made the kids eat it so your bowel movement will be regular. We ain't got time to be taking you to no doctors. I remember one time I got sick. My grandmother gave me a Vaseline on a spoon and put some sugar on it. Made me swallow Vaseline and sugar. You want to know why? Because they didn't have no money for no doctor's visit. You can't go to the hospital over a stomach ache. You better eat this Vaseline and sugar. It's a lucky. This shit crazy. We was poor. You can't go to the doctor. You better take this Vaseline and this sugar. You got a cold. You know what your folks did? Get that ginger ale. Nigga, ginger ale is what you had to take when you had a cough, because we can't afford to take you to no doctor. You better drink that ginger ale. You better get that Robitussin. You want to know why Robitussin was a solution for all the sicknesses as a kid growing up? Because that's all we could afford was Robitussin. You better find a way for this Robitussin to work. We ain't got no money for no doctors. Guess what? It's 2026. We ain't got no money for no doctor. You better take this Robitussin. It's 2026. We ain't got no health care. Guess what? You better heal that broken bone with the wet mud. You go down to Jamaica. You break a leg or break an arm. They wrap your arm up with some leaves, throw some damn wet mud on there, and you better heal that broken bone. We ain't got no money for the doctors. We can't afford to go to see no emergency room. Christ said, I came for them people. And just imagine, Christ was healing the sick. You understand? Raising the dead. We in a time now where there's going to be some sick that never get healed. We in a time now where there's going to be mental disorders that don't get diagnosed because you ain't got no money to go to the doctor. They've been very kind to us with all of this, kids getting autism and kids on the spectrum and kid. It's gonna be a time coming where we just gonna say he can't get right. I don't know what's wrong with him, but he can't get right. The boy he's 5, he ain't talking. He's gonna call him can't get right. Why? We don't know what's wrong with him. We'll never know what's wrong with him because we ain't got no money for the doctors. But you know what we can do? We can pray. We can pray the Lord or let the boy learn to talk. Pray the boy or let him be able to read. Pray that this little girl that, sees letters backwards, pray the Lord to heal her so she can see them the right way. That's the faith that is going to take in these times we living in. Because niggas is too poor for the doctor. They was too poor for the doctor in the day Christ walked the earth. And the rich look down on the poor like, what's wrong with you? Got these kids out here with this undiagnosed dyslexia. Nigga, I ain't got no money for no doctor. You walk around with these kids, got this, this kid is, when I was young, I knew kids with, what's the shit? I knew niggas, excuse me. What am I trying to say? I knew kids on the spectrum growing up. I knew kids that was autistic. We didn't call it autistic when I was young. You want to know why we didn't know they was autistic? Because nobody had no money for no doctor for the diagnosis. I remember being young, sitting with my cousin. I got a cousin 4 years older than me. His mama taught us phonics. I remember learning the Hooked on Phonics book. My Aunt Vicky sat with me and made me learn phonics. My cousin 4 years older than me could not get it. He couldn't understand it. And I remember my aunt used to beat my cousin. And like, you can't, he get it, why can't you get it? And she used to beat him. And we grown now, and it's like, this nigga might have had a learning disorder. The nigga might have been seeing letters backwards. The nigga might have been a little slow. You want to know why we didn't know if anything was wrong with him? Because nobody had no money for a doctor to find out if he dyslexic. We ain't got no money to find out if this nigga's on the spectrum. We ain't got no money to find out if he got a learning delay or a disability. You just beat him. Beat him till he get the problem right. Beat him till he, know what it is. That was the time we came up in. Again, in the 80s, I was born in the middle of the Reaganomics. What no money for no doctors to tell them that my cousin couldn't see. And up to this day, this cousin struggles reading. I remember he came, man, we was in our 20s. He come to me from a job and say, man, they gave me this paper, man, what does it say, cuz? Just break it down for me. And I read the paper. This is a simple notice from the job, something changing the schedules and, you got to clock in and clock out. And I read him the thing and he like, hey, man, I appreciate it. And I thank the Lord I never looked down on these people, man. I never looked at these people like there was something wrong with them. I just always, my mother, when I was young, made sure that I understood that my intelligence was a gift from God and you honor it. And if you don't honor it, the Lord will take it from you. But I remember, man, people would come to me and ask me to read something though. In school, cats, they knew I was smart. They would come, hey, break this down for me, man. What this talking about? Or help with a math problem or something. I would help them. I mean, these kids could have really had problems. They could have really had learning disabilities. Nobody had no fucking money to go find out. We didn't have $200 for a doctor visit, for the doctor to tell us that you retarded, for the doctor to tell us that you slow. You know what we did? We just prayed. We just prayed. My aunt got tired of beating my cousin. She just don't even sit over here no more. Just fuck it. Don't even worry about the phonics. And I learned the phonics. I learned it and excelled at it, and it was beautiful and wonderful. But damn, we didn't have that luxury. Well, that's what it was in the time of Christ. Christ healed these people because of their faith. We living in a time where we're gonna have to have that same faith. Christ says it. Christ said the time was gonna come back around where people were gonna be too poor to get help, too poor to pay a doctor, too poor to be able to have somebody to come and care about them. And they were going to have to lean on their faith. They were going to have to trust in the Lord to be healed, trust in God, to be delivered. And we in that time again. Let's drop this. Let's get on. Let's drop. That was Mark chapter 2, verse 15 to 17. Let's get Okay, let's get All right, hold on. Let's get Matthew chapter 8, starting at verse 1. Oh, no, not that. This is heavy. So much of this is heavy, but I'm trying to get to the point of these people being poor. Trying to get to the point of the poverty of the people during the days of Christ. Oh, I'll give you an easy one. Let's get let's see. Let's get Matthew 16 and 5. No, not that. Hold on. Hold on. Get Matthew chapter 14, verse 17. All right. Matthew 14 and 14. Matthew 14 and 14. Get Matthew 14 and 14. Matthew 14 and 14. And being in, growing up in church is so evil that you miss all of the context of these scriptures in church, because the church wants to focus so much on prosperity and focus so much on, God can do all things, that they forget to recognize that there are some people in this world that are poor that need to be delivered. They need the men of God to deliver them from their poverty. They don't need men of God to tell them nice words and to tell them things that make them feel better. They need men of God to be there in the struggle with them, be in the midst of the hardship with them, to go through the hell that they are going through with them. If you are a preacher out there, somebody that say you believe in God and you live in some rich, wonderful, illustrious life, and you don't give to the people that believe, you don't serve the people that are hungry and that are thirsty, that are too poor to afford the things that they need, and you don't give it to them, you're an evil bastard, man. You're disgusting. I thank the Lord for the ISUPK. And here, those who do the will of the Father, they taken care of, man. Those who obey the Most High, they get the help that they need, man. We don't look at poor people. That's why we have food programs and we go and feed the poor, and we have clothing drives to give away free clothes, because that's the work that the children of God are desiring in this day. That's the help that they need. When we teach these classes and we provide counsel, when we answer your questions, when we give you the things that you need so that you can change your life and learn what the Lord requires of you, we give that freely because it's what the Lord commanded that we give, man. Matthew chapter 14, verse 14. It says, Matthew 14 and 14 says, and Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude and was moved with compassion toward them, and he healed their sick. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, this is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals. So the disciples are saying, listen, man, it's getting late. Well, first of all, Christ was moved with compassion. Why? Because these people were sick, man. These people were poor. These people were jammed up. They didn't have nobody that cared for them. There wasn't nobody tending to them. They couldn't afford to go to the hospital. They couldn't afford to go to the doctors. They couldn't afford, a stay for 3 days and 3 nights to get better. So they just was out there in the villages, in the world, just suffering, going through their hell. Christ was moved, man, and healed these people because they were so downtrodden, because they were so beaten. You understand? And as the night came, the disciples said, man, send them away. It's getting late so they can go eat. Verse 16. But Yahushua said unto them, they need not depart. Give ye them to eat. Man, got to go away. Feed them folks. Feed these people. Verse 17, and they said unto him, we have but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Verse 18, and he said, bring them hither to me. You understand now? Why were the disciples worried about trying to feed these people? Because Christ and his disciples were poor. These were broke men. These were not men that had money. These were not men that were rich and wealthy. Christ was poor, and his disciples, they were poor. Christ called these men to leave their jobs, to leave their slaveries, and to come and do the work of the Lord. They weren't rich and living a good, wonderful life. If Christ and his disciples were on the earth today, you know what they would be called? They would be called bums. They would be called no good ass niggas. They would be called lazy, and you don't want to have a job. They would say, man, my job is to serve the Lord. My job is to wake God's people up. You know what people would say? Man, you niggas are bums. You looking for a handout. That's the society that we're living in today. When they asked Christ and his disciples, why do your men pick corn on the Sabbath? They didn't understand. You niggas could eat any day. Why are you doing this now? Christ said, we don't have any other time to eat but now. We're starving. You want us to wait till tomorrow? No, we're going to go pick that corn now. You're not going to stop us from eating because it's the Sabbath, nigga. Are you serious? But these rich, wealthy, elites, they don't understand what it's like when you're starving, when you got to eat now. They don't know what it's like to go 2 or 3 days with no food. They don't know what it's like to have been Christ cursed the tree that wouldn't give him any fruit because he was hungry. Nigga starving. I should be able to eat free fruit off a tree. I come to the olive tree. Come to the tree, ain't no damn olives on it. Christ cursed that tree and it withered because the tree should have had fruit. They was hungry. They were starving. Everybody understands. They were afraid to feed these people because they were poor. If they had money, if they had wealth, they would have just said, hey, man, send somebody to go buy everybody some food and bring it back. Christ showed that with faith, you could do anything. And with faith, you could feed this multitude of poor people with 5 loaves and 3 fish. And that's what Christ did. He fed the multitude with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Why? Because of faith. Because he trusted in the Lord that these people would be fed. And guess what? The Lord made sure the people were fed. We're going to need that kind of faith in these days that we're living in. We're going to need to be able to feed one another, not knowing where the food is going to come from. Just tell them all to be there, man. We're going to feed everybody. And the Lord will make a way for us to feed everybody. Everybody understands. Let's drop that. Let's get hold on. All right, let's get Matthew chapter 11, verse 7. No, let's get Luke chapter 7, verse 24. Luke chapter 7, verse 24. And again, these scriptures is I'm gonna have more scriptures tomorrow, and we're gonna get more on the point of showing the parallels between the society of Christ's time and the society we're in today. But this class, I wanted to show in this class that the climate socially, and the complications with the classism of Christ's time is exactly what we are experiencing today. There is a divide in the Black and Hispanic community. There's division between us because of the language barrier, because of the culture barrier, because of the lies of our oppressors have taught us, right? We've been taught that we two different races of people. We have two different histories and two different pasts. So there's division between Black and brown. But even in the non-division within the truth, we recognize that, man, the Hispanic and the Native Indian are our brothers. We Black, the Hispanics and Native Indians, they suffered with us. They were in captivity. They were enslaved, man. Them are our people. But even in us recognizing that, they are brown and Native Indians that recognize that Black, man, we all the same people. But even once we connect on that level, there's another division that exists between poor Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians and the rich Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians, the politicians and the bankers and the lawyers and the doctors and the engineers. There's a separation between them and the lower class Blacks that work the blue collar jobs and work the menial 9 to 5 and got the regular life. There's a separation between our lifestyles, our culture, the way we live. The people that are at the top, a lot of them have already pledged their allegiance to the oppressor. They've worked too hard and sacrificed too much to make this money, to live in that nice white neighborhood, to drive that big car, fancy car, live in that nice gated house that they don't even have no relation to you poor niggas. They don't even have nothing to do with you and your poverty and your struggle and your suffering. They want to know why you don't vote. They want to know why you not, joining the white man. We telling them there's no benefit to us joining the white man. We've been voting and they helped us. There's a middle class of Black and Hispanic in this country that don't know why we poor people don't want to vote. Because it ain't changing nothing. Voting ain't did nothing for poor Black people. It helped some of you educated Negroes go to college and get a degree. It helped you be able to work in that white man's law office or work in that white man's hospital. But it ain't helping poor Black people. So there's a division that exists between the rich and the poor. A lot of the rich, man, they've aligned themselves with the master. So we should just cut them out. We shouldn't even look to them for any help, look to them for any leadership or guidance. So now is cut off the people that don't see that we won. Cut off the people that's too rich to understand our plight. You understand? And now amongst us, there's a divide in beliefs, a divide in religion. Some is, Christian, some Muslim, some Jewish, some Egyptologists. That same division among doctrines existed during Christ's time. That's why John the Baptist had his followers. That's why the Pharisees and Sadducees had their followers. That's why when Christ taught, they was asking them questions. Well, if you saying this, then what does that mean? The same way they do what? They question the UPK. We battling the Islam. We battling the Jewish man. We battling the white Christian. You know what I'm saying? We battling the atheists. We battling everybody because we are doing exactly what Christ did when he walked the earth. So like the social political climate that was existing in the days of Christ is existing now. And it's important to understand that because when you read the Bible, it'll make more sense. It'll make it easier to understand that Christ was up against the same thing that we up against. The battles of the time were the same battles that we're having today. And it should show you that, man, not much has changed. Not only has much not changed, but the same way Christ walked the earth and then died and the planet didn't stop spinning, we in this time now where things are getting horrible and worse. And guess what? The planet ain't going to stop spinning. The world is not going to grind to a halt because the righteous men and women of God are being oppressed. The earth is not going to grind to a halt because the white man trying to put Black people back in slavery. So in seeing all these things unfolding that the Bible tells us have unfolded in times past, what can we do to make sure that we don't suffer the same fate of previous generations? And we got to do what Christ and his disciples did, which is come back to the Most High and obey him. Keep his law, statutes, and commandments. Be the people he called us to be so he could deliver us like he delivered us out of Egypt. He's promised to deliver us. He's promised that a time was going to come when the deliverance that God has of his children out of the land of the north is going to be greater than the deliverance he had of his children out of the land of Egypt. And we should be working hard to prove to the Lord that that time should be now. It shouldn't have to be another cycle of this evil. It shouldn't have to be a continuation of the wickedness. I pray that my daughter's generation doesn't have to grow up in the world of the white man. I pray that my daughter's generation can grow up in the kingdom because we've done a work that's worthy of the Lord saying, send my son, send their king to deliver them. Everybody understands? Sister Anaya says, Salaki, sir, when Christ reminds the Pharisees of David and the bread, can that also be used for cooking on the Sabbath, or is it strictly about him eating bread for priests? It could be. It's definitely not for cooking on the Sabbath because that wasn't a sin. Cooking on the Sabbath wasn't a sin. Lighting a fire for someone, it was a sin to cook on the Sabbath if your job was being a cook. If your job was to be a personal chef for somebody, or you worked at a restaurant making sandwiches and cooking meals, then it was unlawful to cook on the Sabbath. Lighting a fire is not unlawful on the Sabbath. It's not unlawful to turn on the lights, to light the stove. It's not unlawful to bake a cake if you're doing it for fun. Doing it is something you like to do. The Sabbath was made for man. Christ was explaining to them, you niggas don't know the law. You understand? We are priests that serve the Lord. The priest can eat the showbread. David ate the showbread. Why? Because David was on the run. David was doing the work of the Lord. That's why he ate the showbread. So you understand, sis? She said, come. So it's a little different, all right? Let's get back to the scriptures, and I'm going to wrap up the class today, and we'll get back to it tomorrow and finish the breakdown. This is Luke chapter 7, verse 24. It says, and when the messengers of John were departed, he began to speak unto the people concerning John. What went ye out into the wilderness for to see? Now, where was John teaching? John was teaching in the wilderness. You know where John was not teaching? John the Baptist was not teaching in the synagogue. John the Baptist was not teaching in the church. John the Baptist wasn't even teaching in the town square. John the Baptist wasn't teaching in the city where the people were. John was out in the wild, in the wilderness, in the country, in the backwoods teaching. The news of John baptizing in the Jordan River spread into the city. It spread into the high society, the places where the rich men were. But John was in the wilderness. John the Baptist, Christ about to break it down, what type of man John the Baptist was. Let's keep reading. Luke chapter 7, verse 24. And when the messengers of John departed, he began to speak unto the people concerning John. What went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaking in the wind? Did you go to see a reed shaking in the wind? What is a reed? A reed is them little plants that stick up out of the water. If you go down near the river, go down near a natural body of water, close to the shore, you'll see little plants sticking up out of the water, right? Well, when the wind blows the reed, because it's in water, it doesn't have a solid foundation. The reed doesn't grow thick and strong like a tree. So the reed isn't a solid object that sits still. The weed blows when the wind blows. It's shaking to and fro. Christ said, when you went to see John, did you go see a reed shaking in the wind? Meaning what? Did you go to see something that was weak? Did you go to see something that was easily swayed? He's asking, did you think that John was a reed shaking in the wind? Did you go see a soft man? Did you go to see a man that's easily moved? Read on. Luke 7 and 25. But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? What did you go to see? Did you go see a man clothed in soft raiment? What's soft raiment? All your designers. That's soft raiment. What's soft raiment? All the damn rhinestone and glitter pants at the men's store. Every outfit at the men's store is glitters and rhinestones. Did you go see a man with glitter pants and rhinestones on his garment? No. Did you go see a man with Gucci and Giuseppe and all designer that he don't want to get dirty because he's so fresh and so clean? No, that was not John the Baptist. That ain't what you went to go see. Keep reading. Luke chapter 7, verse 25. A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they which are gorgeously apparelled and live delicately are in the king's courts. Those who dress fine and live deliciously, they in the king's courts, man. They up there, they in the mayor's house. They in the governor's mansion. They up there in the state capitol with the senators and with the congressmen. They in the lawyer's office. They in the doctor's office. They not in the gutter. They not in the wilderness. Did you go see that when you went to see John? Nah, you didn't go to see some man that was dressed deliciously, and that lives, lives delicately. You understand? Verse 26. But what went ye out for to see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and much more than a prophet. The prophets of God have never been fancy schmancy, rich elites, high society, above the common people men. It's never been the prophets of God. The prophets of God were never rich and living deliciously and gloriously while the people suffered. Even Daniel, you read the book of Daniel, Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were very smart, intelligent, well-respected Israelites living in the captivity under the Babylonians. Even they had jobs they had to show up to every day. Even they were pouring at the whims of their oppressor. Even though they was, they never turned their back on their people, is the point I'm making. They never were too rich to not respect the poor, to not acknowledge the suffering of the poor. Moses was raised in Pharaoh's house. Moses saw a Hebrew smite, an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew. He looked both ways. Moses laid that Egyptian in the dirt. These men were never afraid to give up their riches and their status and their high seat in society to abandon their people. John the Baptist could have lived deliciously, could have had a nice life. John the Baptist was in the wilderness, wearing camel's hair and eating honey. John the Baptist lived a wild life because that was the life of a prophet. Jesus Christ did the same thing. A lot of people say, where was Christ from the time he was 12 to the time he was 30? Slaving. That's what Jesus was at. He was slaving. He was living a regular life. There was nothing to talk about in those years because he was just some regular guy. Then the Lord woke him up, you understand? And he understood his purpose, understood his mission. And at the age of 30, he began to go and do his thing. He began to go and teach and let the Lord use him. Everybody understands. That's the life of a prophet. You understand? That's the life of a man chosen by the Lord. It's not an easy life. Reading on, this is Luke 7:27. This is he of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee. Now, John the Baptist is out in the wilderness and he's teaching. John the Baptist is out in the wilderness and he's baptizing. Who is out there to hear John? Who is out there to, be a part of his ministry? If John is not living in the city, if John is not a rich man in the king's court, if John is not, rubbing elbows with the rich and the wealthy, then who is John teaching? Who's out there in the wilderness, away from the city, away from the king's court, away from, all the people that could afford to live nicely? It's the poor, the downtrodden. John the Baptist did not respect the high society. He didn't respect the rich niggas. Again, because John knew these ain't even our people. These niggas ain't even us. John, man, look. I could get into the death of John. I taught it in a class about 6 months ago. John got put to death behind a lap dance. A lap dance is the Bible records in the New Testament that a lap dance is responsible for the death of John the Baptist. And John the Baptist was put to death behind a lap dance because one of the king's brothers was a trick. The king's brother was a trick. He wanted this woman so bad, he paid her to divorce her husband and marry him. John the Baptist called it out. John the Baptist said, Priscilla, you a hoe. You a nasty bitch. You left your man to go be with this man because he the king's brother. You left your man to upgrade to a richer man. That's not allowed in our laws. That's not allowed in our culture. That's how I know you niggas ain't righteous. And that bitch had her daughter dance, get a king a lap dance at the wedding. I mean, at the wedding, just at a party. Get a king a lap dance on his birthday. The bitch Priscilla had her daughter give the king a lap dance on his birthday. And the king said, baby, you can have whatever you want. The bitch said, I want John the Baptist's head. And the king was like, damn, bitch, John the Baptist is one of they prophets. They love that man. And the king knew that bitch did that because her mother got offended because John the Baptist called that whole thing out. It's the same world we living in today. There's poor that the Lord has chosen, that the Lord is teaching, that the Lord is raising up. And there's rich who don't want to lose their power, don't want to lose their seat. That's what we'll get into tomorrow. We'll get into tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll get into the threat that Christ posed because of the other side of the opposition to Christ. We'll show you the mindset of the men on the other side. The men on the other side of Christ were deathly afraid that if Christ continued to teach, that if Christ's message continued to spread, that they would lose their authority, that they would lose their power being in subjection under the oppressor, and they was not going to give up their power. These politicians and these pastors, they are not going to give up authority over black people. These athletes and these entertainers, they are not going to give up their seat of power and influence over black people. The more that the truth spreads and the more that we come for everybody that follows them and looks up to them, the more that we're going to be hated. And it's important that we understand the lessons of Moses and the lessons of Noah and the lessons of Christ to know how to deal with these people when the time comes that they raise up against us. With that, clap it up. With the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge out of 1 West 125th Street in Harlem, New York. Since 1969, we've been teaching so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians the truth according to the Bible. What is the truth? The truth is that so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians descend from the greatest people that have ever walked the face of the earth. The Bible identifies us as the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. And in the year 2026, there's nothing more important than for God's chosen people to learn the truth of who we are, where we come from, and what our purpose is on the earth. What we like to do with these classes is give brothers and sisters an opportunity to go into this book called the Bible to gain the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that the Most High has put inside of this book so that we can come back to being the people that he called us to be and to reclaim our righteous place on the earth as kings, priests, and princesses and daughters of Zion. With that being said, man, I appreciate y'all brothers for tuning in. Brothers and sisters for tuning in. Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shabbarak Atham to all the brothers. Yahweh Shema Atham Hashem Yahweh Shah to all the sisters. I'll see y'all for class tomorrow. Shalom.